I sold my business for $30 million and took my daughter and my husband to the most expensive steakhouse in New York to celebrate. While I stepped away for a call, the waiter whispered, "Sir, your son-in-law just dropped something in your glass." I smiled coldly, silently switched the glasses, and sat back down. Before continuing, subscribe to our new channel, where we tell stories about men who take revenge on their insolent children, sons-in-law, and daughters-in-law. My name is Robert Hammond. I'm 64 years old, and I've spent the last 37 years building Hammond's Prime from a single steakhouse in Manhattan into a 6-restaurant empire across New York. Last month, I sold it all for $30 million. People congratulated me, called me smart for cashing out at the perfect time. But sitting here now, I realize the real test wasn't building the business. It was recognizing when the people you love most have become strangers. My daughter Christina used to be my shadow. When she was 7, she'd stand on a step stool in our first restaurant's kitchen, watching me work the grill. "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to make steaks just like you," she'd say, her eyes bright with admiration. 29 years later, those eyes have gone cold. The change started 3 years ago when she met Jason Douglas at some charity gala in Brooklyn. He was charming, I'll give him that. Perfect smile, expensive suit, the kind of confidence that comes from never facing real consequences. But I saw something else too, a calculation in his eyes when he looked at Christina. Not love, appraisal. They married after 8 months. I paid for the wedding, $43,000 at the plaza. Christina barely spoke to me during the reception, too busy with Jason's crowd of hedge fund types and venture capitalists. When I tried to dance with her, the traditional father-daughter dance, she pulled away after 30 seconds. "Jason needs me," she said, and left me standing alone on the dance floor. That's when I knew I'd lost her. The next 2.5 years confirmed it. Christina became distant, calling only when she needed money. "Dad, our rent went up." "Dad, Jason's starting a consulting business and needs capital." "Dad, can you help with our car payments?" I gave her everything she asked for. What else could I do? She was my only child, my little girl, but each conversation felt more transactional, less personal. She stopped asking about my health, my life, just my bank account. Jason was worse. He'd visit my penthouse on the Upper East Side, always with that practiced smile, calling me Sir and Robert, with just enough respect to seem polite, while his eyes roamed over my furniture, my art collection, calculating values. I caught him once, taking photos of my whiskey collection in the study. "Just admiring your taste," he said smoothly. But I knew better. I've dealt with enough suppliers and competitors to recognize a man making an inventory. 2 weeks ago, when the sale of Hammond's Prime finally closed, I decided to celebrate. $30 million in the bank. Time to share the joy with family, right? I called Christina. For the first time in months, she answered on the second ring. "Dad, how are you?" Her voice had that artificial brightness I'd learned to recognize. "I'm wonderful, sweetheart. The sale went through. I'd like to take you and Jason to dinner. Celebrate properly." A pause. I could almost hear her calculating. "That's amazing, Dad. We'd love to. Where were you thinking?" "The Capitol Grill. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. My treat, of course." "Perfect." Jason will be so excited. He's been wanting to talk to you about some opportunities. I bet he has, I thought. But I said, "Wonderful. See you tomorrow." The Capitol Grill in Midtown has been my go-to for important dinners since it opened. The staff knows me, the manager greets me by name, and the sommelier keeps my favorite bottles in reserve. When I arrived at 6:45 the next evening, Marcus the head waiter smiled and led me to my usual corner booth. Prime location, private enough for conversation, visible enough to see who's coming and going. Christina and Jason arrived at 7:10. Late, as always. Christina wore a designer dress I didn't recognize. Probably cost $3,000. Jason had on a navy suit that screamed Armani. They looked like they were attending a business meeting, not a family dinner. "Dad!" Christina kissed my cheek, the gesture mechanical. "You look great." "So do you, sweetheart." I stood to shake Jason's hand. His grip was firm, aggressive, alpha male nonsense. "Robert, congratulations on the sale." Jason's smile didn't reach his eyes. $30 million. Impressive number. "Thank you. I worked hard for it." I gestured to the seats. Please sit. I've already ordered us the 1947 Chateau Margaux. Celebration wine. Christina's eyes widened. Dad, that's like $800 a bottle. Closer to $1,200, actually, I said. But tonight's special. Jason's expression shifted. Just for a second, a flash of pure greed crossed his face before the charming mask returned. That's very generous, Robert. You've certainly earned the right to celebrate. The first hour passed in excruciating small talk. Christina asked polite questions about the sale, but I could tell she wasn't really listening. Jason dominated the conversation, talking about opportunities in the market and smart investments for someone in your position. Translation, let me manage your money so I can steal it. I played along, nodding and smiling, watching them perform. Christina kept glancing at Jason like a student checking with her teacher. He'd give her little nods, silent signals I wasn't supposed to notice. They were working together, playing a game I was supposed to be too old and trusting to see. The wine arrived. Marcus poured with his usual ceremony, presenting the bottle to me first. I swirled, sniffed, tasted. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Marcus. He poured for Christina and Jason, then refilled my glass. The burgundy liquid caught the candlelight, glowing like liquid rubies. I raised my glass. To family, to new beginnings. To family, they echoed, but the words sounded hollow. We were halfway through our steaks. I'd ordered the bone-in ribeye. Jason got the porterhouse. Christina picked at a fillet when my phone buzzed. Thomas Webb, my attorney. I frowned at the screen. I'm sorry, I need to take this. Thomas wouldn't call during dinner unless it's urgent. I stood, phone in hand. I'll just be a moment. Take your time, Dad, Christina said sweetly. Too sweetly. I walked toward the entrance hall, answering the call. Thomas, what's wrong? Robert, sorry to interrupt your evening. Quick question about the escrow documents. Did you sign the amendment on page 47 or... His voice faded as I processed what I saw. Marcus was approaching from the bar area, moving quickly but quietly. His face looked tense, worried. He caught my eye and jerked his head toward the back hallway, away from the main dining room. Thomas, hold on 1 second. I lowered the phone and stepped into the hallway. Marcus followed, glancing around to make sure we were alone. Mr. Hammond, he whispered urgently. Sir, your son-in-law. When you stood up, he put something in your wine glass. I saw him from the bar. He pulled a small vial from his jacket pocket, looked around, and dumped it in. I'm certain. The world seemed to tilt slightly. My son-in-law, my daughter's husband. The man sitting at my table, drinking my $1,200 wine, eating my food, just poisoned my drink. I stood in that hallway for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. Marcus watched me, concerned, waiting for some reaction. Part of me wanted to believe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Jason was adding sugar. Some people do that with wine. But I'd known Marcus for 5 years. He'd served me at least 100 times. Never raised a false alarm. Never gossiped. If he said he saw it, he saw it. Are you absolutely certain? I kept my voice steady, lawyer trained from decades of contract negotiations. Yes, sir. I watched him check to see if anyone was looking. Then he took out this little bottle, looked like one of those essential oil vials, and poured the whole thing into your glass. Maybe half an ounce of liquid. I thought about Christina's face when I'd mentioned the 30 million, that flash of hunger. I thought about Jason's constant questions about my health, my estate planning, my succession thoughts. I thought about how they'd insisted on this dinner, how eager they'd been. Thomas, I raised the phone again. I'll need to call you back. Is everything all right? Not even remotely. I'll explain later. I hung up and looked at Marcus. Thank you for telling me. I need you to do me a favor. Stay close to that table, but don't let on that anything's wrong. Can you do that? Of course, Mr. Hammond. Should I call the police? I almost said yes. Then I stopped. If I called the police now, what would happen? Jason would deny it. The wine would be tested, sure, but by then Christina would be defending him. Lawyers would get involved. Everything would become a circus. And I'd still be left wondering how deep this went. No. I needed to see this play out. Not yet, but stay alert. I walked back to the table slowly, my mind racing. Christina and Jason were leaning close together, whispering. They separated quickly when they saw me approaching, guilty smiles plastered on their faces. Everything okay, Dad? Christina asked. Fine, sweetheart. Just business details. You know how lawyers are. I sat down, looking at my wine glass. Same level as before. Jason hadn't drunk any of it. Smart. My glass sat there, innocent and deadly. I picked it up. Jason's eyes locked onto my hand, watching with the intensity of a predator tracking prey. I swirled the wine, brought it close to my lips. His breathing changed, faster, shallow. Christina leaned forward slightly, then I smiled. You know, Jason, I've been drinking this bottle all to myself. That's selfish of me. I reached across the table with my glass. Here, let's share. You should taste this properly. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I set my glass down in front of him and picked up his half-full glass, bringing it to my own place setting. The switcheroo took 3 seconds. Smooth, natural, generous host sharing his expensive wine. Jason's face went blank, not shocked, blank, like his brain was processing something impossible. Oh, Robert, that's not necessary. I insist. I raised his former glass to my lips and drank. Perfect, unpoisoned. Christina looked confused. Dad, that's so sweet, but... Nonsense. Drink up, Jason. $1,200 a bottle. Savor it. Jason stared at the glass in front of him, the glass that had been mine, that now contained whatever he'd put in it. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for it. He couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. He'd built this trap himself. He lifted the glass to his lips, took the smallest sip possible, barely wetting his mouth, set it down quickly. Incredible, he managed. Really incredible. I watched him like a scientist observing an experiment. What had he put in there? Poison seemed extreme, too risky, too traceable. Probably something to make me sick, disorient me. Maybe he'd planned to call an ambulance, rush me to the hospital, start questioning my mental competence, plant seeds of doubt about my ability to manage my own affairs. We finished dinner. I ordered dessert, chocolate souffle for the table. Jason barely touched it. He kept checking his watch, shifting in his seat. 10 minutes after I'd switched the glasses, his face changed. The color drained from his cheeks, which turned from a healthy tan to pale gray. His eyes widened. Jason? Christina touched his arm. Are you okay, honey? I feel sick. His voice sounded strained. He pressed his hand to his stomach. Something's wrong. What's wrong? I asked, concerned. Should I call someone? No, I just... He stood up abruptly, the chairs creaking. His face changed from gray to greenish white. Excuse me, the bathroom, right away. He practically ran to the restroom, one hand pressed to his mouth, the other clutching his stomach. Christina jumped up. Jason! She ran after him, her heels clicking on the marble floor. I sat alone at the table, with 3 dessert plates and 2 wine glasses, one of which contained an unknown substance and was half empty. Marcus appeared beside me. Are you... Just bring me the check, Marcus. I think dinner is over. I heard a muffled sound coming from the restroom. Someone was running. The restroom door closed. I took a sip of wine, the same one that belonged to Jason, and allowed myself a cold smile. My son-in-law had just set himself up, by setting me up. Poetic justice was almost too perfect. Christina appeared 5 minutes later, looking exhausted. Dad, Jason is very sick. He may have eaten something. We need to go. Of course, sweetheart. Let me pay, and I'll ask Marcus to call you a taxi. No, we'll take an Uber. We just need to go. She didn't look me in the eye. Guilt? Complicity? I couldn't understand it yet. Jason appeared behind her, supported by the waiter's assistant. He looked like a man who had just lost a boxing match with an eating disorder. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his expensive suit was wrinkled. He couldn't even look at me. Feel better, Jason, I said cheerfully. Something must have been wrong with your food. He nodded weakly before Christina pulled him toward the exit. I watched them go, my daughter and the man who had just tried to slip me something, stumbling out into the New York night. Marcus brought the check. Will there be anything else, Mr. Hammond? Actually, yes. I pulled out my phone and photographed both wine glasses from multiple angles. Don't clear this table yet, and I'll need you to make a statement about what you saw tonight. My lawyer will contact you. Marcus nodded slowly, understanding. Of course, sir. Whatever you need. I paid the $1,500 bill, added a $500 tip, and walked out into the cool June evening. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, and I was already making a list of phone calls I needed to make. First, Thomas Webb, my attorney. Second, Marcus Wade, my chief accountant. Third, someone who could dig into Jason Douglas's background, because a man who casually poisons his father-in-law at dinner has done this before. I hailed a cab and gave the driver my Upper East Side address. As we pulled into traffic, I thought about Christina at 7 years old, standing on that step stool, eyes bright with love and trust. I thought about Christina tonight, running after her poisoner husband, complicit or oblivious. I'd find out which. The cab merged onto Fifth Avenue. Behind us, the Capitol Grille's lights faded into the Manhattan skyline. Ahead of me, everything was about to change. My phone buzzed, text from Christina. Dad, Jason's really sick. Might be food poisoning. So, sorry we had to leave early. Thank you for dinner. Love you. Love you. 2 words she hadn't said in 3 years. Now she said them the same night her husband tried to drug me. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my contacts and found Thomas Webb's number. He answered on the second ring. Robert, everything okay? You sounded strange earlier. Thomas, I said calmly, I need you to clear your schedule tomorrow. We have work to do. A lot of work. What kind of work? I watched the city lights blur past the cab window, the kind that requires lawyers, investigators, and absolute discretion. My son-in-law just tried to poison me at dinner, and I think my daughter might have known about it. Silence on the other end. Then, I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anyone else. Robert, are you safe? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. I smiled at my reflection in the cab window. I'm angry, and when I get angry, I get methodical. 20 minutes, Thomas repeated and hung up. The cab pulled up to my building. The doorman opened my door, greeted me by name. I rode the elevator to the 15th floor, unlocked my penthouse, and walked to my study. My whiskey collection glinted in the low light, bottles worth thousands collected over decades. I selected a Macallan 1967, poured 2 fingers, and sat in my leather chair. Jason Douglas had made a crucial mistake tonight. He'd underestimated me, thought I was just some old man, too trusting and too slow to see what was happening. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I'd built 6 restaurants from nothing. I'd survived the 2008 recession, the pandemic, every crisis the industry could throw at me. I'd negotiated with unions, dealt with the mob's protection offers in the 80s, outlasted competitors who tried to destroy me. And I'd done it all while raising a daughter alone after my wife died. Now that daughter was married to a man who'd just poisoned himself with his own trap. And I was going to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. The doorbell rang. Thomas right on time. I stood, whiskey in hand, and walked to answer it. The game had changed. They'd made the first move. Now it was my turn. Thomas Webb arrived at my penthouse carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the expression of a man prepared for war. I'd known Thomas for 12 years. He'd handled the legal side of my restaurant expansions, the sale negotiations, countless contracts. But tonight was different. Tonight I was asking him to help me investigate my own daughter. Tell me everything, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. Start from the beginning. I walked him through the dinner, Marcus's warning, the switched glasses, Jason's dramatic exit. Thomas listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. You're absolutely certain Marcus saw him put something in your drink? Marcus has worked at the Capitol Grill for 7 years. He knows me, knows I tip well, has no reason to lie. He was completely sure. Thomas nodded slowly. Then we need to assume this wasn't improvised. Jason came to that dinner prepared to drug you. The question is why? That question kept me awake most of the night. After Thomas left, promising to return the next morning to discuss strategy, I sat in my study, replaying every interaction with Jason and Christina over the past 3 years. Details I'd dismissed as personality quirks now looked sinister, like how Jason always asked about my health, not casual concern, specific questions about memory, balance, medication. You seem tired, Robert. Are you sleeping okay? Forgetting things? I'd thought he was being considerate. Now I wondered if he was documenting symptoms for some future use, or how Christina had insisted on being added as a consultant to two of my restaurants. I want to learn the business, Dad. Help you manage things? I'd been touched by her interest. I'd given her access to vendor contracts, supplier accounts, employee records, everything she'd need to steal from me systematically. The next morning, I called Marcus Wade, my chief accountant. Marcus had managed Hammond's Prime's finances for 15 years, surviving expansion, renovation, and one instance where the company nearly went bankrupt during a recession. If anyone could detect financial irregularities, it was him. Marcus, I need you to do one thing for me. It may sound paranoid. After 30 years in accounting, nothing sounds paranoid anymore. What do you need? I want you to review all financial transactions that Christina had access to over the last 3 years, all the contracts with suppliers she approved, all the payments to suppliers she processed, all the expense reports she submitted. Everything. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, Robert, this is your daughter. Are you sure? I'm sure. Can you do this quietly, without telling anyone? Give me a week. I'll run it as a routine compliance check for the new owners. No one will ask any questions. Those 7 days were unbearable. Christina called twice, both times to ask how I was feeling. You seemed out of sorts at dinner, Dad. Jason said you looked upset when you came back from your phone call. The concern in her voice sounded genuine, but I knew better now. She was testing me, checking to see if what Jason had put in that glass might have a delayed effect. I played along. I'm fine, honey. Just tired. The sale really wore me out. You should get more rest. Maybe see a doctor. Get checked out. I'll think about it. I wasn't going to, but I needed her to believe that I could. Jason texted me. Robert, sorry I got sick during dinner. I hope I didn't ruin the holiday. Let's do it again soon. The casual tone gave me goosebumps. This man had set himself up, and now he was texting me about dinner plans. I didn't reply. On the 6th day, Marcus called. Robert, you need to come to my office, immediately. His office was in a building near Bryant Park, on the 5th floor, a corner office with windows overlooking the park. I had been there dozens of times for quarterly reviews and tax planning sessions. Marcus met me at the door, his normally cheerful face grim. Sit down, he said, closing the door behind us. What I'm about to show you is going to make you angry. He spread documents across his desk. Invoices, contracts, payment records. At first glance, they looked legitimate. Orders for restaurant equipment, food supplies, maintenance services. But Marcus pointed to specific line items, highlighting discrepancies. See this invoice from Empire Restaurant Supply? It's for $42,000 worth of kitchen equipment, supposedly delivered to your Madison Avenue location in January of last year. Christina approved it, processed the payment. Okay, so I called Empire. They have no record of that order. The invoice number doesn't exist in their system. The delivery confirmation is forged. Look at the signature. That's not their driver. He showed me another document. This one's from Premium Foods Distribution. $23,000 for prime beef and seafood, delivered monthly for 6 months. Except Premium Foods went out of business 3 years ago. These invoices are dated from last year. One by one, Marcus dismantled what I'd thought was legitimate business. Fake vendors, forged invoices, payments processed through accounts Christina had access to, money disappearing into companies that either didn't exist or weren't actually providing services. How much? My voice came out flat, emotionless. Marcus pulled out a summary sheet. $127,000. That's what I can confirm so far. There might be more, but those transactions would require deeper forensic accounting. $127,000. My daughter had stolen $127,000 from me. Not borrowed, stolen. Through systematic fraud and forgery. Where did the money go? Marcus showed me the final piece of evidence. A corporate registration document for a company called Coastal Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware. The sole owner, Jason Douglas. The timeline matched perfectly. The company was registered 3 years ago, right around when Jason and Christina started dating. I stared at those documents, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't opportunistic theft. This was planned. Christina hadn't just changed after meeting Jason. She'd been recruited, groomed, turned into an accomplice for a long-term con. Marcus, I need copies of all this. Everything you found. Already done. He handed me a USB drive. It's all here. Robert, I have to ask, what are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? Call the police? Press charges against my own daughter? Watch her go to prison alongside her criminal husband? I don't know yet. But I need you to keep this quiet. Don't tell anyone, not even the new owners. This stays between us. Of course. Robert, I'm sorry. I know she's your daughter, but don't. I stood up, pocketing the USB drive. Don't make excuses for her. She made her choices. I walked out of Marcus's office into the June sunshine, the weight of that USB drive in my pocket feeling like evidence of murder. In a way, it was the murder of whatever relationship I'd thought I had with Christina. My phone buzzed. Text from Christina. Dad, want to grab lunch this week? I miss you. I stared at those words. She missed me. She missed my money, more like. Missed the access to my accounts that she'd lost when I sold the business. I wondered how long it would take before she and Jason made their next move. I didn't have to wonder long. The next morning, I made a phone call to a number Thomas had given me. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. Gavin Reed. Mr. Reed, my name is Robert Hammond. Thomas Webb referred you. He said you might be able to help me with the situation. Thomas doesn't refer people unless the situation's serious. What do you need? I need someone investigated. Background check, current activities, associates. Completely confidential. That's what I do. Who's the target? I took a breath. My son-in-law, Jason Douglas. Silence. Then, family matter. Those get messy. My rate's $500 an hour, plus expenses. Minimum retainer of $5,000. If you want surveillance, that's extra. Money's not a problem. When can you start? I can meet you this afternoon. There's a coffee shop on Lexington and 63rd. 2 o'clock work for you? Gavin Reed turned out to be a former NYPD detective who'd gone private after 23 years on the force. He was in his late 40s, built like someone who still worked out regularly, with sharp eyes that probably missed nothing. We met at a corner table in the back of the coffee shop, away from other customers. I showed him a photo of Jason on my phone. That's him, Jason Douglas, 38 years old, married to my daughter for 2.5 years. I need to know everything about him. Criminal history, financial records, business dealings, who he associates with, everything. Gavin made notes on a small tablet. What prompted this? I told him about the dinner, the poisoned glass, the stolen money Marcus had found. Gavin's expression didn't change. Clearly he'd heard worse, but he nodded occasionally. Sounds like a classic long con. Meet the daughter, marry in fast, gain access to the father's money, steal what you can, then find a way to take the rest. The drugging attempt at dinner. That's escalation. He's getting impatient. Can you find out what he put in my glass? Unless you kept a sample, probably not. But I can find out if he's done this before. Guys like this usually have a pattern. Give me 2 weeks. I'll have a full report. I left Gavin at the coffee shop and spent the rest of the day trying to act normal. I went to my regular golf club, played 9 holes with some acquaintances, made small talk about the sale of my restaurants. Nobody had any idea that underneath my calm exterior, I was building a case against my own daughter. That evening, Christina called. Not a text. An actual phone call. Unusual. Dad, hi. Are you home? I am. What's up, sweetheart? Jason and I were thinking of stopping by. We're in the neighborhood. Maybe have a drink, catch up properly. We feel terrible about how dinner ended. They wanted to come to my penthouse, into my space. The audacity was almost impressive. Sure, come on up. I'll open a bottle of wine. Not the good stuff, though. Never again. They arrived 20 minutes later. Christina wore a casual sundress, Jason in jeans and a button-down shirt, both of them smiling, relaxed, like nothing had happened, like Jason hadn't tried to drug me 5 days ago. Robert, thanks for having us. Jason shook my hand, that same firm grip. I wanted to break his fingers. I'm feeling much better. Must have been food poisoning. Must have been, I agreed, watching his eyes, looking for any sign of guilt, fear, recognition? Nothing. The man was either a psychopath or an excellent actor. Probably both. We sat in my living room with glasses of a decent Cabernet. Christina curled up on the sofa next to Jason, their body language screaming couple in love. I sat across from them, playing the role of doting father. So, Dad, now that you've sold the business, what are your plans? Christina asked. Are you going to travel? Relax? Enjoy retirement? I'm thinking about it. Maybe take that trip to Italy I've been putting off. Visit some vineyards. That sounds wonderful. She exchanged a glance with Jason. You know, Jason and I were talking. With all this money from the sale, you should really think about estate planning, making sure everything's set up properly for the future. There it was. Less than a week after trying to drug me, they were already pushing for access to the $30 million. Estate planning, I repeated. You mean a will? Well, yes, but also trusts, power of attorney, that kind of thing. Jason knows a great estate lawyer, someone who specializes in these situations. I'm sure he does. I sipped my wine. Actually, I've been thinking about that myself. Thomas Webb and I have been discussing some options. Jason leaned forward. That's great, Robert. Estate planning is so important, especially at your age. You want to make sure Christina's taken care of, that your assets are protected, that someone you trust can make decisions if you're unable to. If you're unable to? The phrasing made my skin crawl. Absolutely. I want to make sure everything goes to the people who deserve it. I smiled. Christina is my only heir, after all. Everything I have will be hers eventually. Christina's eyes lit up. Actual joy. Not at the thought of inheriting, at the thought of the money. Dad, that's so sweet. But don't talk like that. You're going to be around for a long time. I hope so. But you never know. Better to be prepared. They stayed for another hour, making pleasant conversation, asking subtle questions about my finances, my health, my plans. I answered vaguely, pleasantly, playing the role of aging father who didn't suspect a thing. After they left, I stood at my window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere out there, Gavin Reed was digging into Jason's past. Marcus was keeping my financial evidence secure. Thomas was preparing legal strategies. And I was learning something I'd never needed to know before. How to be a predator instead of prey. My phone buzzed. Email from Gavin Reed, sent from an encrypted address. Preliminary findings. Subject has prior fraud charges. New Jersey, 2017. Charges dropped due to procedural errors. Following a pattern. More to come. I read the email twice, then deleted it. Jason Douglas was exactly what I'd suspected. A career criminal who'd found his perfect mark. A wealthy, trusting father with a vulnerable daughter and no wife to provide a second opinion. He'd made one critical mistake, though. He'd underestimated me. Thought I was just another rich old man, too blind and too soft to fight back. 3 days later, Gavin sent another update. This one made me go cold. Subject and your daughter met with attorneys specializing in mental competency cases. They're building a case to declare you incapacitated. Recommend immediate defensive action. I called Thomas immediately. They're going to try to have me declared incompetent. We need to move faster. I've been preparing for that. Come to my office tomorrow morning. We have work to do. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the dinner, the switched glass, Jason's face when he realized what he'd drunk. The whole thing finally made sense. He hadn't been trying to kill me or even seriously harm me. He'd been trying to create an incident, get me to the hospital, maybe acting confused or disoriented, start building a medical record showing cognitive decline. Then after a few more incidents, declare me incompetent, get a judge to assign Christina as my guardian, take control of my finances, move me into a care facility, or keep me drugged and compliant at home. It was almost elegant in its cruelty. Almost. I poured myself a glass of Macallan 25 and sat in my study, surrounded by the evidence of a lifetime of work. The photos on the wall, me at the opening of my first restaurant, the expansion to the second location, the Forbes article about Hammond's Prime becoming a Manhattan institution. My daughter was in some of those photos, smiling, proud, loving. When had she stopped being that person? Or had she ever really been her at all? My phone sat on the desk, Gavin's encrypted emails still in my deleted folder. I thought about what Thomas had said. Recommend immediate defensive action. I smiled for the first time in days. Not a pleasant smile. The kind of smile a chess player makes when he sees the endgame 20 moves ahead. They wanted to declare me incompetent? They wanted to take my money, my freedom, my dignity? Fine, let them try. But first, I was going to make sure they understood exactly who they were dealing with. I was going to show them that Robert Hammond wasn't just some old man with a checkbook. I'd built an empire from nothing. I'd survived recessions, pandemics, the mob, the health department, kitchen fires, and every disaster the restaurant industry could throw at me. And now I was going to survive my own daughter's betrayal. I picked up my phone and texted Thomas, "Let's meet tomorrow, 8 a.m. It's time to start building our case." His response came immediately. "I'll have everything ready. We're going to win this." I set down the phone and looked out at the New York City lights. Somewhere out there, Jason and Christina were probably celebrating, thinking they were close to winning, thinking the old man was too trusting, too slow, too weak to stop them. They had no idea what was coming, and that's when I understood exactly how to repay them for every lie, every theft, every moment of betrayal. Not with violence, not with anger, but with something much more permanent: consequences. Thomas Webb's office at 8 in the morning looked like a war room. He'd spread documents across his conference table: legal precedents, trust documents, guardianship case law. 2 coffee thermoses sat beside stacks of papers. This was going to take a while. "First things first," Thomas said, sliding a folder toward me. "We need to protect your assets. If they succeed in getting you declared incompetent, a court-appointed guardian could access everything. We need to make that impossible." "How?" "An irrevocable trust. You transfer the $30 million from the sale into a trust, where you're the beneficiary during your lifetime. You control the distributions, you enjoy the income, but the assets themselves are legally owned by the trust. After your death, the money goes to designated charities and educational grants, not to heirs." I like the sound of that. "So even if they get guardianship, they can't touch the money?" "Correct. The trust is a separate legal entity. A guardian manages your personal affairs, but they have no claim on trust assets. And because it's irrevocable, you can't change it later, which means nobody can pressure or manipulate you into changing it." "When can we set this up?" "I've already drafted the documents. We can execute them today. You'll need to transfer the funds from your current accounts into the trust account within the next week. I recommend doing it in stages, so it doesn't raise red flags." We spent the next 3 hours going through paperwork: trust agreements, beneficiary designations, transfer authorizations. Thomas explained each document patiently, making sure I understood what I was signing. By noon, the Hammond Family Irrevocable Trust existed as a legal entity, and my $30 million had a new, untouchable home. "Now for the second part," Thomas said, pouring fresh coffee. "We need them to believe they're winning. Keep them focused on the prize so they don't realize we're building a case against them." "What do you suggest?" "Make them think you're updating your will in their favor. Drop hints about leaving everything to Christina. Let Jason overhear conversations about your estate planning. Make them believe the finish line is in sight." A week later, I put the plan into action. Christina had invited me to lunch at a bistro in Soho, her choice, probably hoping the public setting would keep me agreeable. I arrived 10 minutes early and made sure the hostess seated us at a table with good acoustics. Jason joined us 5 minutes after Christina, apologizing for being late. Something about a meeting running over. "No problem," I said cheerfully. "I was just telling Christina about my meeting with Thomas Webb yesterday." Jason's interest sharpened immediately. "Estate planning stuff?" "Exactly. We're updating my will, making sure everything's properly organized." I paused for effect. "After selling the business, I want to ensure Christina is completely taken care of. She's my only family, after all." Christina reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Dad, that's so thoughtful. But you don't need to worry about that now. You're healthy. You're active." "I know, sweetheart. But I'm 64. Things happen. I want to make sure that when my time comes, you inherit everything without complications. The $30 million from the sale, the penthouse, all of it should go to you smoothly." I watched Jason try to control his expression. Excitement flickered in his eyes before he suppressed it. "That's very generous, Robert. Have you considered setting up a trust? It can help with tax efficiency. Thomas mentioned that. We're exploring options. I smiled. The important thing is that Christina doesn't have to worry. Everything I've built, everything I've earned, it's all for her. Christina's eyes were actually watering. Either she was a better actress than I'd thought, or some part of her still felt genuine emotion about this. I couldn't tell anymore. The rest of lunch passed in pleasant conversation. They asked about my health, my plans, whether I'd been feeling okay lately. I played my part perfectly, slightly forgetful about minor details, occasionally pausing as if searching for words. Nothing dramatic, just enough to plant seeds. You know, I said as we were finishing dessert, I couldn't remember my golf club password yesterday. Stood there at the pro shop for 5 minutes trying to recall it. Eventually had to reset it. Getting old, I guess. Jason and Christina exchanged a glance. Quick, meaningful. They thought they were being subtle. That happens to everyone, Dad, Christina said. I forget passwords all the time. Still, makes you think? I dabbed my napkin at my mouth. That's why I want everything documented properly. In case something happens to me, or if I start really losing it, I want you protected. We appreciate that, Jason said, his voice warm with false concern. We're here for you, Robert. Whatever you need. After lunch, I walked back to my penthouse, taking the long route through Central Park. The summer heat was building, tourists crowding the paths. I bought an overpriced bottle of water from a vendor and sat on a bench, watching people pass by, couples holding hands, families with children, normal people living normal lives. My phone buzzed. Text from Gavin Reed. Subject meeting with Realtor tomorrow, 2 p.m., office on Madison Avenue. Want surveillance? I texted back. Yes, audio if possible. Another buzz, this time from Thomas. Trust transfers complete. Assets secure. Next phase? I smiled at my phone. Next phase indeed. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went through old photo albums, pictures of Christina as a baby, as a toddler, as an awkward teenager with braces, her high school graduation, college acceptance letter, her first day working at Hammond's Prime, wearing a server's uniform and grinning proudly. When had it changed? When had my daughter become someone I didn't recognize? I found a photo from her wedding, Christina in white, radiant and beautiful, Jason beside her, handsome in his tuxedo, me standing on her other side, smiling like the proud father I was. That was 2.5 years ago. Had she already been stealing from me by then? Had the plan already started? I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. Nostalgia was a luxury I couldn't afford right now. The next afternoon, Gavin sent me a video file. The audio was crystal clear. Christina and Jason in a real estate office talking to an agent about property values. We're just planning ahead, Jason's voice said. My father-in-law owns a penthouse on the Upper East Side. We may need to liquidate it in the next year or so. Is he looking to sell? The agent asked. Christina's voice. Not exactly. He's getting older, and his health isn't what it used to be. We may need to make some decisions on his behalf soon. I see. Do you have power of attorney? We're working on that, Jason said smoothly. But we wanted to understand the market value first. The property is worth approximately $4.2 million, correct? In the current market, probably closer to 4.5. That neighborhood is very desirable. I listened to the entire recording twice. They were already planning to sell my home, already calculating values, discussing timelines. The $30 million from the sale wasn't enough. They wanted everything. I forwarded the recording to Thomas with a note. Add this to the file. His response. Building quite a case. When do you want to spring the trap? Not yet. I needed more. I needed them to dig themselves so deep they couldn't climb out. Over the next week, I played my role perfectly. I called Christina twice and forgot. I'd already called earlier that day. I missed a golf game with Thomas, claiming I'd written down the wrong time. I asked my doorman for directions to the building's gym, a gym I'd used for 10 years. Each incident was calculated, deliberate. Each one got reported back to Jason and Christina, who I'm sure were documenting everything for their incompetency case. What they didn't know was that Gavin was documenting their documentation. Every meeting with their lawyer, every conversation about my declining health, every plan they made to take control of my life. Thomas called me on a Friday afternoon. Robert, I think we have enough. Between the embezzlement evidence, the recordings of their incompetency plans, and Gavin's surveillance, we could probably file criminal charges right now. Not yet. I have one more piece to put in place. What's that? I need Jason to try to steal from me one more time. I need him to commit a crime so obvious, so documented, that no lawyer could argue it away. That's risky. I know, but I need this to be airtight. When this is over, I want them to understand exactly how badly they underestimated me. Thomas was quiet for a moment. What do you need me to do? Can you set up a dummy bank account? Make it look like it has access to the trust funds. That's creative. And probably legal, since it's not a real account. Give me 2 days. I spent that weekend at Winged Foot, playing 18 holes with some acquaintances from the club. Normal conversation, normal golf. I shot an 87, not my best, but respectable. Nobody would look at me and think I was a man preparing to destroy his own daughter's life. But I was, and the scary part, I didn't feel guilty about it anymore. Thomas called me on Monday morning. The account is ready. It's a test environment account that looks completely real. Shows a balance of $30 million. Displays is linked to the Hammond Trust, but any transaction attempts will be flagged and logged without actually processing. Perfect. How do I give Jason access to it? That's the clever part. You don't give it to him. You let him find it. That afternoon, I invited Christina and Jason for dinner at my penthouse. Nothing fancy, just takeout from a local Italian place. We ate in my dining room, making small talk about their jobs, their apartment, the summer weather. I made sure to stumble over a few words, lose my train of thought mid-sentence, ask Christina if she'd already told me something she hadn't mentioned at all. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom. On my desk in the study, I'd left my laptop open with the bank account page displayed. The dummy account, showing $30 million in available funds. My username was visible in the login field and, seemingly by accident, I'd left a sticky note beside the keyboard with what looked like a password. Hammond 2025. I'd positioned the laptop so it was clearly visible from the doorway. Anyone walking past would see it. I stayed in the bathroom for a full 5 minutes, giving Jason plenty of time. When I came back, he and Christina were sitting exactly where I'd left them, but Jason's face had a slight flush. His eyes were bright with excitement, barely contained. I sat back down. Sorry about that. Where were we? You were telling us about your golf game, Christina said. We talked for another hour. I watched Jason checking his watch repeatedly, clearly eager to leave. Finally, they made their excuses. Early morning tomorrow. Long day ahead. Thank you for dinner, Dad, Christina said, kissing my cheek. Anytime, sweetheart. It's good to see you both. After they left, I checked the desk. The laptop had been moved slightly, maybe an inch to the left. Someone had definitely looked at it. The sticky note was in a slightly different position. I called Thomas immediately. He saw it, monitored the account. Already on it. I've got alerts set up for any access attempts. The attempt came at 2:30 in the morning. Thomas called me, his voice tight with satisfaction. He's in, or trying to be. He's attempting to initiate a wire transfer of $5 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Can you trace it back to him? Already done. The IP address is from his apartment in Brooklyn Heights. He's using his home computer, not even bothering with a VPN or proxy. The arrogance is remarkable. I smiled in the darkness of my bedroom. Let him think it worked. Can you make it show as processing or something? Better. I can make it show as pending approval for 72 hours, then fail with an error message. That way he thinks he almost got away with it. Do it. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Jason sitting at his computer at 2:30 in the morning, typing in what he thought was my password, initiating what he thought was a $5 million theft. The boldness of it was almost admirable. Almost. The next morning, Christina called me. Her voice was cheerful, light. Morning, Dad. How are you feeling today? Good, sweetheart. Why? Just checking in. You seemed a little off last night, forgetting things, losing your train of thought. I worry about you. I'm fine, just tired, I think. Maybe you should see a doctor, get checked out. Jason and I have been talking, and we think it might be good to have a full health screening. Make sure everything's okay. There it was, building the narrative. documenting my decline, setting up their incompetency case. That's thoughtful of you. I'll mention it to my doctor at my next checkup. When is that? Oh, I can't remember exactly. Sometime next month, I think. I made my voice uncertain, vague. Dad, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You should know when your doctor's appointments are. Maybe I should come with you next time. Help you keep track of things? Maybe. Let me think about it. After I hung up, I texted Gavin. They're accelerating. Stay close. His response? Already on them. Meeting with their lawyer again this afternoon. The pieces were falling into place. Marcus had the financial evidence. Gavin had the surveillance recordings. Thomas had the attempted theft documentation. And I had something more valuable than all of that combined. Patience. 3 days later, Jason's attempted transfer failed with an error message. Thomas called to tell me. He tried to access the account again this morning, saw the failure notice. I wish I could have seen his face. We'll see it soon enough. That weekend I did something that probably looked insane from the outside. I invited Christina and Jason to a family dinner. Not at a restaurant this time, at my penthouse. Just the three of us. Christina sounded surprised when I called. Really? You want to cook? Not cook. I'll have it catered, but I want us to spend time together. Family time. There's something I want to discuss with you both. I could hear the excitement in her voice when she agreed. She thought this was it. The moment I'd announce I was signing everything over to her, giving her power of attorney, making her my guardian. They arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, both dressed nicely. Christina wore a blue dress that probably cost $800. Jason had on slacks and a blazer, his hair styled perfectly. They looked like they were attending a business meeting disguised as a family dinner, which in a way they were. We ate catered food from a French restaurant in Midtown, coq au vin, ratatouille, a beautiful salad. I'd ordered a Bordeaux that cost $300, though I barely touched it. I wanted to be completely clear-headed for what came next. Over dessert, creme brulee that neither of them really ate, I cleared my throat. There's something I need to tell you both. Christina leaned forward, her eyes bright. What is it, Dad? I've been doing some thinking about my age, my health, my future, and I've made some decisions. Jason's hand found Christina's under the table. I could see them squeezing each other's fingers, barely containing their anticipation. I'm meeting with Thomas Webb next week to finalize some documents. Estate planning, healthcare directives, power of attorney, all the things a man my age should have in order. That's so responsible, Robert, Jason said, his voice smooth as silk. We're here to support you in any way we can. I know you are. That's why I wanted to tell you first. I paused, watching their faces. I'm planning to leave everything to Christina. The trust from the business sale, the penthouse, my investments, my collections. All of it. Christina's eyes filled with tears. Real tears, unless she'd learned to cry on command. Dad, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, sweetheart. You're my daughter, my only family. Who else would I leave it to? Jason's face had gone slightly red, like a man trying not to show how excited he was. His breathing had quickened, his pupils dilated. Classic signs of arousal, not the sexual kind, the predatory kind. The kind a wolf shows when the sheep walks into the trap. Except in this case, the wolf had no idea the sheep was actually a tiger in costume. When are you meeting with Thomas? Jason asked, trying to sound casual. Next Friday, 1 o'clock, at my place. I was hoping you both could be there. I'd like you to see the documents, understand how everything's structured. It's your inheritance, after all. You should know what you're getting. They exchanged another glance, this one filled with pure triumph. They thought they'd won, thought the old man had finally cracked, finally given in, finally handed them everything they'd been scheming to take. I smiled at them both, warm and fatherly. I'm so glad I can do this for you. Families should take care of family. Absolutely, Christina said, her voice thick with emotion. We love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. After they left, practically floating out the door, I poured myself a glass of Macallan and sat in my study. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Are we ready? I looked at the calendar. Next Friday was 8 days away. 8 days to let them savor their victory. 8 days to let them plan how they'd spend my money. 8 days to let them believe they'd outsmarted me. Then I'd show them what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. I texted back, "Prepare the full presentation. Every piece of evidence, every recording, every document. I want them to see exactly how thoroughly they've destroyed themselves." Thomas's response was immediate. "It will be ready. This is going to be memorable." I raised my glass to the Manhattan skyline, visible through my study windows. Somewhere out there, Jason and Christina were celebrating, planning their new life funded by my $30 million, counting money that would never be theirs. They had no idea that next Friday wouldn't be an inheritance meeting. It would be a reckoning. Friday arrived with perfect summer weather. I was celebrating justice. Thomas arrived at noon with 2 briefcases. "Everything's ready," he said. "Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence." I helped him arrange the materials: embezzlement evidence, surveillance recordings, the dummy account theft attempt, Jason's criminal history from New Jersey. Christina texted at 12:30. "Running late. Be there by 1:15. They arrived at 1:20, dressed like they were attending a corporate merger. Christina in a cream suit, Jason in a charcoal 3-piece. They looked like liars. "Dad!" Christina kissed my cheek. "Sorry we're late." We walked to the dining room. Thomas stood by the table, folders arranged in front of my seat. "Please sit down," Thomas said. They sat, both trying to look relaxed, both failing. "Before we begin," I said warmly, "I want to thank you both. You've been so concerned about my health, my well-being. It's been touching." Christina smiled. "Of course, Dad. We love you." "Which is why I wanted this meeting." I nodded to Thomas. "Go ahead." Thomas opened the first folder. "Over the past 3 years, there have been irregularities in Hammond's prime accounts. $127,000 paid for equipment never delivered." Christina frowned. "That can't be right." "The money was transferred to Coastal Holdings, LLC." Thomas pulled out documents. "The sole owner is Jason Douglas." The room went silent. Christina's face went pale. Jason's expression stayed neutral, but I saw the calculation in his eyes. "That's a mistake," Jason said. "I don't own that company." "Really?" Thomas slid the registration across. "That's your signature, your social security number." Thomas pulled out the second folder. 2 weeks ago, you met with an attorney specializing in mental competency cases." He tapped the tablet. Audio played, their voices discussing how to get me declared incompetent, gain access to my accounts. Christina's mouth fell open. Jason went very still, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "This is illegal," Christina stammered. "You can't record." "New York law," Thomas said. "One-party consent." Robert gave his consent. Jason spoke, voice tight. "What do you want, Robert?" "I want to understand something, Jason. That night at the Capitol Grill, what was in my wine glass?" Christina's head snapped toward him. "What is he talking about?" "The waiter saw you," I said conversationally. "Watched you dump something in my drink." Jason's face showed panic. "I don't know. I switched our glasses. You drank it. Spent 20 minutes in the bathroom. What was it?" "It was just," his voice cracked, "a laxative. To make you sick, disoriented. We'd call an ambulance, start building a medical record." "Jason, shut up!" Christina cried. Thomas opened the third folder. 8 days ago, Robert left his laptop open. At 2:37 a.m., someone from your IP address tried to transfer $5 million. He showed the logs. "That's attempted grand larceny. 25 years in prison." Christina was crying, makeup smearing. "Dad, please. This is a misunderstanding." "Mistakes?" My voice went cold. "You stole from me for 3 years. $127,000. Planned to have me declared incompetent. Sat at my table pretending to love me while robbing me blind." I leaned forward. "You thought I wouldn't notice?" She couldn't answer, just sat crying, hands shaking. I pulled out Jason's criminal record. "You ran this exact scam 8 years ago in New Jersey. Different woman, different father, same pattern." I watched color drain from his face as he realized everything had been uncovered. "You thought you were playing me," I said quietly, "but I've been playing you. Every confused moment, every forgotten appointment. I was documenting you. Building a case." Thomas cleared his throat. "Which brings us to consequences." He pulled out settlement documents. 2 options. Sign these. Admit embezzlement. Repay $127,000 plus $43,000 interest. Waive all inheritance rights forever. Or we file criminal charges. For Jason, 10 to 15 years as a repeat offender. Christina, 3 to 5 as accomplice. Absolute silence. Christina looked at me, eyes desperate. Daddy, please. I'm your daughter. You thought I didn't know what was in that glass? I asked quietly. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was love me. Really love me, not my money. She broke down sobbing. Jason's face had gone white as paper. All confidence gone. Small, trapped, defeated. You have 48 hours, Thomas said. Sunday at 1:45. Sign the settlement or we file charges. Nobody moved. Christina kept crying. Jason stared at documents like evidence at his murder trial. Thomas blocked the door. Christina's head shot up. This is insane. We haven't done anything wrong. 37 pages of evidence say otherwise, Thomas replied. Evidence obtained illegally. No court would accept. The recordings are legal under New York law. As for entrapment, Robert's a private citizen. Jason attempted theft from what he believed was a real account. No inducement necessary. Jason found his voice. You're bluffing. You won't go to police. She's your daughter. I let him see the absolute absence of mercy in my eyes. You tried to drug me, stole for 3 years, planned to have me declared incompetent and locked away. You wanted to bury me alive. I leaned forward. Try me, Jason. Test whether I'm bluffing. His face went paler. Christina turned on Jason. This is your fault. You said we could make this work. Shut up, Christina. Jason's voice was sharp. Don't say anything. Why not? They know everything. She gestured wildly. Dad, it was Jason's idea. All of it. I just went along. You forged the invoices, I said quietly. Your signature on approval documents. You processed the payments. Because he told me to. Jason stood abruptly. We're leaving. This is harassment. Thomas moved slightly, still blocking the door. Leaving would be a mistake. The moment you walk out, I call Detective Sarah Morrison, NYPD Financial Crimes. I can tell her we've settled, or I'm filing criminal complaints. Your choice. Jason's jaw clenched, calculating. How much time? Sunday, 1:45 p.m. Fine. We'll review with our attorney. You're right, Thomas said. But we've frozen Christina's consultant payments, $43,000 in escrow, notified your mortgage company about fraud concerns, placed liens on the Tesla and BMW. Jason's face went from white to red. You can't. We can. Evidence of embezzlement gives us grounds. Consider it motivation to settle quickly. Christina grabbed her purse, hands shaking. I can't breathe. I need... Go, I said. Take your 48 hours. Try to find a way out. But understand something. I stood looking at my daughter. I would have given you the world, Christina. All you had to do was ask. Instead, you tried to steal it. Now you'll learn that actions have consequences. She looked at me with swollen eyes. Genuine remorse or just fear, I couldn't tell and didn't care. They left, Jason dragging Christina. I watched from my window as they argued on the sidewalk below. Thomas gathered documents. They'll spend the weekend trying to find loopholes. Will they find one? No. Any attorney will tell them. Sign or face prosecution. They called at 7 that evening, both on speaker, voices tight. We talked to a lawyer, Jason said. Evidence is solid. But the payment terms, $170,000 in 60 days, that's impossible. Then find a way. That's not my problem. Christina's voice broken. Daddy, please, can we do a payment plan? No. You stole for 3 years without asking. Now you want flexible terms? I paused. 60 days. More generous than you deserve. Silence. What about the waiver of inheritance? Jason asked. Christina's your only child. Which is why this hurts, I said quietly. You're asking me to reward betrayal? No. Christina gets nothing. If she signs, she stays out of prison. That's her inheritance. Christina's voice barely audible. Can I talk to my father alone? I heard argument, then Jason hung up. Just Christina now. Daddy, I'm here. I'm sorry. Jason made it seem justified. He said you owed me, that I deserved more. I believed him because I wanted to. You wanted the money. I I don't know anymore. Crying again. My marriage is falling apart. My relationship with you is destroyed. And for what? Then you should know. The settlement separates your liability from Jason's. If you cooperate, provide testimony about Jason's role, your payment could be reduced. Her breathing changed, calculating. I need to think. 48 hours. Use them wisely. Sunday morning, rain fell, appropriate weather. Thomas called at 10. Jason's attorney reached out, wants to negotiate. No negotiations, I told them. He wants 90 days instead of 60. Waiver modified. Christina's payments released. I laughed. Tell him original terms or nothing. Clock's ticking. At 1:30, my doorbell rang. Christina stood there alone, looking like she hadn't slept. Red eyes, messy ponytail, jeans instead of designer clothes. Can I come in? She walked to my living room, looking around like seeing it for the last time. Where's Jason? Meeting with lawyers. Still trying to find a way out. She faced me. Dad, I'll sign. Whatever you want. I'll testify against Jason if needed. Just please don't send me to prison. And Jason? He's refusing. He's delusional. She wiped her eyes. I'm done with him. Filing for divorce. If you sign, you'll owe $85,000 in 60 days. Can you do that? I'll sell everything. Take out loans. Work 3 jobs. But I'll pay you back, Dad. Every penny. And the waiver? No inheritance? Ever? Her voice broke. I understand. I don't deserve anything anyway. Thomas will have papers ready. Come back at 5. If Jason wants to sign, he can come too. If not, we file charges at 6. After she left, I called Thomas. Christina's ready. Jason's resisting. At 5, Christina arrived with a notary. No Jason. At 5:30, Christina signed everything, hand shaking badly. At 5:45, Thomas's phone rang. Jason's attorney. My client agreed. He'll be there in 20 minutes. At 6:05, Jason arrived, face a mask of fury. Didn't look at me or Christina, just sat and signed every document. At 6:20, it was over. Both bound. $170,000 due in 60 days. All inheritance rights waived. Admissions of guilt secured. Jason left, slamming the door. Christina lingered. I really am sorry, Dad. I know. You're sorry you got caught. She flinched, then walked out. Thomas packed his briefcases. That's done. How do you feel? Ask me in 60 days. After he left, I stood at my window watching rain fall on Manhattan. Somewhere out there, my daughter and her soon-to-be ex-husband were figuring out how to pay $170,000 in 2 months. I was free. Finally, completely free. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of something I'd never get back. But that was the price of justice, and I'd paid it willingly. The next morning, 15 missed calls. 12 from Christina. 3 from unknown numbers. Jason calling from different phones. I deleted all voicemails without listening. Thomas called at 9. They've contacted every criminal defense attorney in Manhattan. I've gotten calls from 3 firms asking about our evidence. What did you tell them? The truth. Airtight case, multiple felonies, prior conviction. Every lawyer said the same. Take the settlement. That afternoon, my doorman called. Mr. Hammond, there's a woman claiming to be your daughter. Very upset. Should I send her up? No. Tell her I'm not available. She says it's an emergency. Tell her to contact Thomas Webb. Christina called. I let it ring. She called again. On the 4th call, I answered. What, Christina? Dad, please. Jason found a lawyer who says the recordings might not be admissible, that we can fight. Then fight it. Go to court, but you've got 36 hours left. After that, I file criminal charges. But Dad, you stole from me, planned to have me declared incompetent, pretended to love me while robbing me blind. What exactly do we need to talk about? Silence. Then small. I made mistakes, but I'm your daughter. That has to count for something. It does. It's the only reason you're not already in jail. Any other thief would be talking to police, not a lawyer. You get the settlement offer because you're my daughter. But that's all you get. I hung up. Hours ticked by. I went to the gym, answered emails, organized my whiskey collection, but my mind kept circling the deadline. Sunday, 1:45. Less than 30 hours. Saturday evening, Thomas called. Jason's attorney reached out. They want partial payment now, rest over 6 months. No. Christina called me directly. She's willing to testify against Jason for a reduced settlement. Says he controlled all the stolen money. What do you think? She's trying to save herself by throwing him under the bus. But she forged those invoices. She's just as guilty. No deal. Equal responsibility, equal consequences. Sunday morning, brilliant sunshine. Thomas arrived at noon with briefcases and notary. We set up the dining room, documents in neat stacks, pens positioned, everything ready. At 1, my doorbell rang. Both standing there, looking aged a decade. Christina's eyes swollen, face pale. Jason worse, dark circles, rumpled suit. Confidence evaporated. Come in. They walked past like condemned prisoners. In the dining room, Thomas waited. Please sit, Thomas said. Jason spoke first, voice hoarse. Before we begin, Robert, I made mistakes. Serious mistakes. I'll pay back every cent. Sign whatever you want. But 60 days. It's impossible. We don't have that liquidity. You have a Tesla worth $70,000. BMW worth $55,000. Christina has jewelry worth $40,000. Combined retirement accounts. Credit cards, loans, family. If you want to pay, you'll find a way. We'll destroy our credit. You destroyed your integrity. Credit scores can be rebuilt, Christina whispered. Dad, I'm sorry. I was stupid and greedy. If I could take it back, but you can't. You can't take back 3 years of theft. Can't take back planning to have me declared incompetent. I paused. Did you know about the laxative? Her silence was answer enough. You knew. You were part of it from the beginning. I tried to talk him out of it. Enough? Thomas pulled out settlement documents. 2 options. Sign these. Repay $170,000. Waive inheritance forever. Or we file criminal charges. Jason, 10 to 15 years. Christina, 3 to 5. Silence. Christina looked at me, desperate. Daddy, please. You thought I didn't know what was in that glass? I would have given you anything. All you had to do was love me, really love me, not my money. She broke down sobbing. Jason's face, white as paper, confidence gone, small, trapped, defeated. 48 hours to decide, Thomas said. Sunday, 1:45. Sign or we file charges. Christina signed first, hand shaking, tears dropping on paper. Jason signed next, movements mechanical, face expressionless. The notary witnessed, stamped each page. Done. First payment due in 30 days, Thomas said. Late by even 1 day, we proceed with charges. Christina lingered. Dad, I know you'll never forgive me. But I loved you. I still do. I just got lost. I looked at my daughter and felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, just vast emptiness where love used to be. You had every chance, Christina. I would have given you anything. All you had to do was be honest. Be real. Be my daughter. I paused. But you chose greed. Now live with that choice. She made a sound between sob and gasp, then fled. After they left, Thomas and I sat in silence. Finally, how do you feel? Ask me in 60 days when I have my money back. After Thomas left, I poured Macallan and stood at my window. The city sparkled, oblivious to the small drama concluded in my penthouse. Somewhere out there, Christina and Jason were beginning to understand consequences, beginning to calculate how they'd raise $170,000. And I was free. Finally, completely, absolutely free. The next 60 days passed in a strange limbo. I went about my life, golf at Winged Foot, dinners with acquaintances, walks through Central Park. But everything felt different, lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't know was there until it was gone. Thomas called me periodically with updates. Christina and Jason had listed both cars for sale. Christina had sold most of her jewelry to a dealer in the Diamond District. They'd both taken out substantial personal loans at predatory interest rates. They were scrambling, desperate, drowning in debt of their own making. I felt no pity. On day 29, the first payment arrived, $40,000 transferred at 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before deadline. They're cutting it close, Thomas said, but they're paying. On day 58, Christina called. Dad, we have the money, the full amount. We're wiring it tomorrow. Good. I also wanted to tell you, I filed for divorce. From Jason. It's over. He ruined my life. Her voice cracked. I'm moving to Boston, starting over. Got a job as restaurant manager. Ironic, right? Christina, I'm not calling for forgiveness. I'm calling to tell you I understand now. What I did, what I threw away. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Christina. The next day, final payment arrived. $130,000. Every cent returned. It's done, Thomas said. You're whole again, financially at least. After we hung up, I sat with whiskey thinking about justice. I'd gotten my money back. Christina and Jason were ruined financially. Marriage destroyed. Reputations in tatters. They'd paid. But I'd paid too. The daughter I'd loved was gone, replaced by a stranger. That relationship was dead. Justice always costs something, even when you win. 3 weeks later, I met Andy Torres, who'd bought Hammond's Prime, at Winged Foot for our Sunday game. On the 10th tee, he asked, "Can I ask something personal?" "Go ahead." "I heard you cut your daughter out of your will. Is that true?" I thought about it. I didn't disinherit her. I removed her ability to steal what she never had a right to. There's a difference. Andy nodded. She was embezzling? Among other things. And you went after her legally? Your own daughter? She made her choices. I made sure she faced consequences. I respect that. It takes strength to hold family accountable. We finished our round. I shot 85, my best in months. Having my life back improved my golf game. That evening I stood in my penthouse watching sunset over Manhattan. September fading into autumn, golden light making the city magical. I held Macallan 1967, 8,500 for the bottle, worth every cent for this moment. I thought about Christina in Boston trying to rebuild, about Jason wherever he'd ended up, about 3 years of lies. Then I stopped thinking about them entirely. They weren't my problem anymore, not my responsibility, my burden, my concern. I'd given them justice. What they did with it was up to them. Text from Marcus Wade. Andy Torres is doing amazing things with Hammond's Prime. The brand is stronger than ever. You built something that lasted. I smiled. 37 years of work had survived even my daughter's attempts to destroy it. Another text from Gavin Reed. Your daughter and Jason split up. She moved to Boston. He's a car salesman in Jersey. Karma's funny. I didn't respond, just set my phone down. I'd been thinking about something. I'd built Hammond's Prime from nothing, sold it for $30 million. And now what? Golf and wait to die? No, that wasn't who I was. I wanted to build something again. Not a chain, something smaller, more personal. A single restaurant in West Village or Brooklyn. Intimate, exclusive, focused on quality. A place where I could cook again, create something excellent. Not because I needed money. The $30 million would keep me comfortable forever, but because I needed purpose. I researched commercial real estate. There was a place in West Village, 2,000 square feet, perfect for 40 seats. Former Italian place closed during pandemic. I bookmarked it. Made a note to call the leasing agent. My phone buzzed. Voicemail notification. Christina, probably. Or Jason. I deleted it without listening. That chapter was over. Closed. Finished. I raised my glass to Manhattan's skyline, to the city that had given me everything and taken almost as much, to 37 years of Hammond's Prime, to my daughter, wherever she was, to justice served cold and complete, and to whatever came next, because Robert Hammond wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. I took a sip of Macallan, smooth, complex, worth every penny, and smiled. Justice had been served, debts paid, consequences delivered, and life, as it always did, continued forward. The question was no longer what I had lost, it was what I'd build next, and I was already making plans. If you like this story, subscribe to our new channel and listen to a few stories there. You can find the link to it in the collaboration or description of this video, or in the comments. Subscribe so you don't lose us, because this channel may soon cease to exist.